and the east. You must let my people go, so we can rule from Cape to Cairo. You must free my people's hands, so we can rule our purpose land. I wanna know who owns the land. Who wanna know who owns the land? Okay, now listen carefully. Chinese are ruling the Chinese land. Japan is ruled by Japanese. England is governed by Englishmen. America is governed by Americans. So, Africa must be ruled by Africans. I wanna know who owns the land. We must rule from Cape to Cairo. We must rule our purpose land. I said, we want to know who owns the land. I want to know who owns the land. Hey, Papa's land.
I'd like to say good evening and welcome all of you on ground zero from Inkambe all the way to Fako. I want to say thank you for joining, and I want to believe you had a wonderful weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special broadcast tonight. Before I forget, let me welcome those of you in the diaspora, in Europe, in Asia, in the continental USA plus Canada, and of course South America. I always said here, we should not forget we have lots of Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians, out there in Mexico, in Brazil, all of Southern America. We've got a lot of Ambazonians in these communities who are there struggling to enter the USA. I hope you are all watching me by way of your computer or by way of your gadgets. Fellow Ambazonians, good evening. We have been told again and again that in this life, opportunity comes only once. But in our case, the destiny of the Southern Cameroons, God continues to be so gracious to us. In 1961, we had the opportunity to make our own country. We had the opportunity in Fumban to complete the decolonization process of our country, the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia. It never happened. For that, we have blamed our ancestors and continue to blame them for the predicament, the mess that became of the Cameroons, which is the reason for this senseless war forced upon all of us, and for which our young ones continue to give their lives for. If Fumban was an opportunity gone, today, ladies and gentlemen, is an opportunity before all of us to take back what was lost. And that's perhaps why we call ours a God-ordained revolution. God, in his infinite mercy and grace, once more is at this time giving us yet another chance to grab back what we forfeited in Fumban out of naivety. Perhaps after today, ladies and gentlemen, and when I say today, I mean this time, this period, this hour, our generation, after this conflict, if we should fail to do the right thing, to put bickering, divisive tendencies, put grandstanding and power projection and tribalistic activism aside, if we fail to end sabotage and conspiracies that aim at derailing the revolution because your man or your leader or your tribesman isn't making the rules or dictating the direction that the wind blows. If we fail again this time like in Fumban, John Ngu Foncha and Solomon Tandeng Mona would have forever been vindicated, because the buck now ends with this present generation of Southern Cameroon's leaders. If after this war we should still go back to assume the place of second-class citizens as being touted around in their special status, we have ourselves to blame, and no more Foncha or Mona. And let me tell you what happens a few years down the road from today. Our children's children, when they read the history, shall not ask why the Fonchas let us down. Rather, they shall be asking how you and me, the leaders of this new opportunity, of this new dispensation, let us down. This monologue is very important in the face of the current opportunity being offered us by the Swiss government, the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, and the rest of the international community to not only find a lasting settlement to this war conflict and the Southern Cameroon's question, but one that goes back to the roots of the problem. A few weeks ago, Yaoundé, in effort to counter the Swiss initiative and to assuage the wrath of the international community over their genocide in our country upon our people, offered a sham, a concoction, and a fraud in the guise of national dialogue. At the end of the day, when it was all over, all said and done, it became very apparent that the outcome has no legs, no antidote, no real and practical solutions to the conflict or the war. The colonial regime in Yaoundé had, in rushing their dialogue in place, hoped that the resolutions would be appealing and would cause us to lay down our arms in surrender. They had hoped that such a result or outcome would then displace the Swiss government and HD initiative aimed at facilitating a settlement. It failed. Everything is back to square one, back on table. I guess the Swiss and the international community can now say they still have the knife and the yam over what becomes of the fate of this conflict or war. But as suggested in the preceding paragraphs, French Cameroon in its characteristics divide and rule ploy appears to be working extra hard, using some among us in this restoration quest who come across as honest and sincere to set confusion or want to set confusion and sabotage. They have asked a number of questions ranging from the neutrality of the Swiss government in the process to the commitment of French Cameroon in the initiative. And they, just as every other Ambazonian, deserve the right to know exactly what this Swiss initiative is all about. The problem, however, is trying to claim custody of all knowledge, all knowing, whereas that knowledge is based mostly on allegations. It is in view of these, ladies and gentlemen, that I invited one of the main persons at the center of the Swiss initiative to come on ABC with answers to every question lingering in the mind of every Ambazonian about the Swiss initiative. Have no doubt that I know exactly what is at stake in any negotiation that seeks to decide the fate of 8 million of us. Even though I serve in the interim government, which has fully endorsed the Swiss initiative, I want you to trust that I will ask the right questions that every concerned Ambazonian would want to ask if you or she were sitting right here. I have not been part of any of the Swiss pre-talks that have taken place so far. Myself, I am eager to get the answers, just as you all are. I'm meeting Alex Libinsky for the first time. For the record, Alex is the Africa Director of the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, a Swiss-based NGO. He's joining me live from Nairobi in Kenya. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alex, again, it's a pleasure to have you here on set on ABC, Ambazonian Broadcasting Television with me, sir. It's a pleasure to have you.
Secretary Anu, I'm honored to be here, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you. So, if I may ask, at the end of your process, if there is a settlement, who implements that settlement? USD, the Swiss, the UN, the EU, who implements that settlement?
Everything is negotiated in a peace process, Secretary. Everything is negotiated, including the venue of the talks, the length of the table, and who sits on what end of the table. So who will then implement an agreement?
Right.
Needs to be negotiated. I have no idea. The only thing I know is that the golden rule is the mediator is never the implementer of the agreement. And the reason for that is once the deal is sealed, do not want to reopen the deal all the time. So it's much healthier if the implementation is handed over to a third party. Now, the implementation is first and foremost the responsibility of the parties. They commit to a number of binding clauses of the agreement, and then you try to create a coalition around the peace process, and that coalition will undoubtedly involve the international organizations such as the United Nations, regional or continental organizations such as the African Union, and then states that have shown an interest in the pacification of this conflict.
Can you give us a good example of a settlement you reached in your career, and what happened in that case in terms of the settlement?
I can give you I can give you recent examples. In a few weeks back, the Renamo and the Frelimo in Mozambique reached a settlement, and this is to be precise, 29 years after the war started, and it is a second settlement.
So what happened in that case with who implemented the settlement, the agreement?
So in this case, it is the parties in a rather independent manner, with again Switzerland and HD as mediators together with the United Nations, that decided on an agreement. And there is no guarantors as such. Now you have another case, which is Central African Republic. Central African Republic, as you know, has gone through several peace processes and negotiations. The last one that led to an agreement back in Khartoum back in February this year between the 14 armed groups and the government has been implemented under the surveillance of both the United Nations, the Sudan as a guarantor, regional organization, under the mediation of the African Union together with HD. So there is no fixed rule. It depends at the end of the day of, one, the willingness of the parties to bring guarantors on board, and two, on the willingness of the international community to actually play a positive role on the implementation of a peace agreement. Now, you can go in details, that is, you can decide on incentives, that is, if the agreement is implemented, there will be incentives in the form of international aid, of aid to DDR processes, of aid to infrastructures in the country or what have you. Then you can have a set of sanctions, and these sanctions can be under the form of precisely cutting aid or what have you. But everything needs to be negotiated by the parties. So I cannot tell you in that case, if and when we reach a political settlement, what will be exactly the form of this settlement. I think it would be healthy that there is a robust international coalition around the peace process, and that coalition can bring peace dividends and can encourage the party to actually implement the agreement.
All right. Now, looking at what you have done so far in this, our example, when do you project to be the very first come together between Ambazonia and French Cameroon? How soon do you see that happening?
We are ready when they are. The Ambazonian coalition team has already expressed readiness to meet. We are still expecting for an answer from the government, and I'll be able to let you know once the government has expressed his willingness to actually sit down and start the talks on talks. I take advantage of that to specify that despite rumors, there has not been any direct or indirect negotiation between the parties as of now, neither in Switzerland, nor in Cameroon, nor elsewhere, at least not under our mediation.
All right. Great to hear that. In these pre-talks that you have been having with Ambazonian leaders, with the ARC, do you see them prepared for a negotiation?
Those who participated in the three Swiss meetings, as you know, there were more and more around the table. I can say in all that they are mature, intelligent, and realistic people. And I think that they absolutely have the capacities to negotiate. I am concerned about the lack of unity among Ambazonian movements. I am concerned about the disputes on the social networks. I am concerned about I am concerned about those who have taken as a target the mediation, while the mediation is only is only really a go-between, and the target is to have successful negotiation. So the international community, and don't forget that the international community has in mind two relatively recent examples of struggles for independence. One is Eritrea, and the other one is South Sudan. And as you know, Eritrea, few after its independence, entered into war with Ethiopia. and South Sudan, as soon as it was independent, entered into a horrible civil war that is ongoing to this date. So there is a relative apprehension and showing difficulties to unite publicly is not in favor of having a robust international coalition around the negotiation process. So my main concern today is the Ambazonian camp willing and ready to unite? And I say so because in my experience, the inability of one or the other camp or both camps to unite usually leads to a failure of the negotiations. You have the example of Syria. The Syrian opposition spent so much time and energy battling among each other that in the end they simply became an irrelevant actor in the negotiation, and the Syrian government with its Russian ally went for a military solution, and these groups of Syrian opponents have almost become irrelevant. The second example, and it's an interesting one, is the current Brexit negotiation. The main difficulty of the British negotiators has been to have the backup of their own people. It has not been so much to find an agreement with the European Union. And so if you sign an agreement and that agreement is rejected by your own people, then in the end you do not reach your objectives. So I feel that all of those who care for your cause should now join their hands, get their act together, put their rivalries aside, and try to speak with one voice at the negotiation table. And whatever happens to that negotiation, I think it will be good for the consistency and the dynamic of the movement.
So if I may ask, very soon I'm opening the phone lines to take a few questions before I let you go. But if I may do a follow-up, in a situation like this, must everybody be on the table or be on board? I know how important it is for as many as possible to be on board, but should everybody be on board? Would the negotiations continue if everybody wasn't on board?
Everybody is a lot of people. There are several millions of you. At the end of the day, what matters is that the negotiators can agree to or can sign on to agreements that will be then respected by their side. So you have to make sure that on board you have people who have a direct influence on the combatants, on the conflict, and people who have a direct influence on the political forces driving the conflict. And again, you know better. You know better who is relevant, who is not relevant. But the best way to do it, and this is pretty much how we have tried to structure it with together with the participants to the process, is to have some form of a deliberative body, a sort of a parliament, if you like, and then to have some form of an executive body that will interact with the deliberative body, and then the executive body to be able to then nominate one or several negotiators and equip them with negotiation mandates. So it's a whole process, and it's really about learning how to function as a political movement. And in every political movement, there are dissenting voices, there are different opinions, there are disputes, but in the end, you must be able to take decisions. negotiating is about taking decisions, and these are always painful decisions, because negotiation is a give and take process. And take is easy, give is difficult. Are you still with me? I have lost the audio.
Okay, I hope you can hear me now.
All right, you're back now.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I was saying that while we expect the calls to come in, let me take this call. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Chris. The Lord Jesus bless you. This is Brother Choranson of the Lord Jesus Christ. I will have a question for Mr. Alex.
You have 1 minute, sir. Go ahead. And may I know, first of all, where you are calling from?
Well, I'm in Maryland. I'm in the U.S. Thank you so much. So, my question is this. Is Mr. Alexander having a written note by La République du Cameroon confirming that they have given their mandate? And what are the terms?
Okay, hold on. Okay, please, Ransom, hold on, please. We don't want to go back. He has spoken extensively on that. He has made it very clear that La République du Cameroon has shown the interest to participate, but being a state party, it is not normal that they will commit to any written note. Alex, if I'm wrong, correct me, please.
You're right, Chris. Yes. Now, Chris, you said it perfectly. But there has been a norm and repeated expressions by the office of the president of the willingness to engage in this process. But there has been no written, there has been no public acknowledgement of the mandate, and I repeat, it is usual practice by governments. And at the end of the day, we will know, once negotiations engage, if the government is on board or not.
Basically, it is about when the Ambazonian leaders who contacted the Swiss HD, did they make it absolutely clear to the Swiss HD or the Swiss government that they want absolute separation or sovereignty of the Southern Cameroons? Because if that is not clear to HD, that the Southern Cameroons or the Ambazonian leadership wants total separation from La République, and they are engaging in these negotiations or mediation on the understanding that it's a domestic issue, then the whole process is null and void. Is it clear to Alex that the Ambazonians want absolute separation from La République and want their independence, and this is not a domestic La République matter? Thank you. That's briefly my question.
All right, thank you. I will let Alex to answer the question.
Well, I would be deaf if it was not clear to me. I think that this is a very the position of your camp is absolutely clear. Now, again, the parties will come with their initial position to the table, and whatever this position is, we will take it on board. We do not have an opinion. We do not veto or accept the positions of the parties. The positions of the parties are the positions they will bring to the table. And I, by definition, as a mediator, I will accept the narrative of both parties, and then we will see how this negotiation comes and how we can find a political agreement or not find a political agreement. Engaging in negotiations is no guarantee that you will get to an agreement. and engaging in negotiations means that there is necessarily some form of compromise, that there is
Alex,
necessarily
I think the question the caller wanted to know, not necessarily whether what they asked they will get, but you wanted to know whether it occurred to you that Ambazonian leaders categorically want nothing but a free and independent Southern Cameroons. Whether they get it down the road or not, I don't think it's within your powers, but did they make this very clear to you?
They have made this absolutely clear to us, and repeatedly so.
All right, thank you. Let's take the next caller. Hello.
Hello, Secretary Chris.
Yeah, may I know where you're calling from, please?
Yeah, this is Maitre Nikonf calling from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And, I will start by thanking you always with the bigger voice and the strong questions you always come forward with. Permit me ask a question to Mr. Libiskin.
Sure.
Thank you. Greetings, Mr. Libiskin. My question will be like this. Please, Mr. Jomba Akuro is known within our Southern Cameroon circles as one of the strongest brains in our revolution. Recently, he just presented the situation on the entire Swiss issue in terms of a negotiation or dialogue and sort. But his outlining was clear that there were a lot of loopholes in the entire Swiss arrangement. But to an end, it sounded that Mr. John Baakoro walked out because he didn't have faith in that negotiation. And you also said you had some very bitter exchanges with him, some true mails and exchanges. So my question now is, if one of our own strongest voice, Mr. John Baakoro, could not have faith in you handling these negotiations, how much faith now do you how do you expect the Southern Cameroon Ambazonia as a whole to have trust in you that you can deliver what we want?
Before Alex comes in to answer that question, which I think he has already, I have played, I don't know whether you were watching, I have played 3 clips, 3 footages of Mr. Mba Akuro here and asked the same question that you have asked, and I think Alex has satisfactorily answered those questions. If Alex still want to say anything to this, please do it briefly so we can move on to the next caller. Thanks for calling.
Hello. Thanks for calling all the way from the Netherlands first, and secondly, Mr. Akuro is welcome on board. I stand ready to answer all the questions Mr. Akuro would have. Now, I'm afraid that I cannot guarantee to Mr. Akuro or anybody else that I can deliver this or deliver that. Only the parties to the negotiations will determine the fate of the negotiations. The mediator is not the champion of a cause of a party or the other party. It would be dishonest from me to say I will deliver independence, as it would be dishonest to me to tell the government I will guarantee unity. I have no opinion somehow on what the parties will come to the table. My job is to structure a negotiation and to make sure that we get it going as far as possible, and that if possible we get an agreement that is not only willingly signed by the parties, but that has a chance to be implemented and to bring a long-lasting solution whereby the people of Ambazonia and the people of Cameroon can get back to their lives, heal their wounds, and live side by side happily.
All right, thank you. And let me add, ladies and gentlemen, that I have taken time to listen to Mr. Akuro, and I must say that quite a number of what he says are distorted. I have, for the record, written to Mr. Akuro twice to come on ABC to debate the issues he has with the Swiss initiative with other leaders, and he has not as much as returned any of my text messages. I have the opportunity, he still has the opportunity to come on ABC to respond, to give answers to the assertion, the allegations that he is putting out there. I'll be very much willing to host Mr. Akuro and the other leaders with whom they went for the first, or they had this first conference call together, and have him repeat the things that he has said to the hearing of other leaders if they have any rebuttal. So, Mr. Akuro is welcome to come on ABC. Again, I have, for the record, I have asked him twice. I still have the messages with me to come on ABC and explain his stance. He would not. So let me take the next caller. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
May I know where you're calling from, please?
Oh, my name is Judos again. I'm calling from Maryland.
Okay. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, let me use this as an opportunity to extend profound gratitude to Alex for taking the time off his busy schedule to handle the cutting-edge issues of this mediation. My question goes, opponents of the Swiss-led international mediation have cast aspersions on the credibility and integrity of HG and the government of Switzerland. In the process, they have used the ties between the president of Cameroon and Switzerland to buttress their argument. They have, without justification, questioned the neutrality of Switzerland, a central tenet of the foreign policy of Switzerland. Are these legitimate concerns, or are they merely attempts to puncture holes on the only international process on the table?
All right.
That's my question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will let Alex do the answering.
Thank you for calling all the way from Maryland. As a mediator, be it a government or an organization, you need to have a thick skin. Shooting on the messenger is unfortunately a usual pattern. So we are used to that, and I would say I am not destabilized by all the kind of accusations that came, because in our acts, in our words, I think that we have been walking the walk and talking the talk. I would like to remind that when we started this process, there were all kind of accusations coming on, including the fact that we would that the participants to our process would be killed on the spot or what have you. So I'm not too concerned. I am concerned, as I said, by the fact that so much energy is spent by some in discussing the mediation, while all energy should go towards being prepared for a negotiation and somehow uniting all those who have an interest in peace and who have an interest in seeing their dreams and their aspirations come true.
Okay, let's take the next question. Hello, sir.
Hello, Secretary Chris. This is Aaron Peterson calling all the way from Ground Zero. Well, I want to use this opportunity to thank you and Mr. Alex for coming up to let all the Ambazonians know what it's all about, the Swiss talk. The very question is this: we here on Ground Zero have been so doubting about the whereabouts of Mr. Adam Curry. I don't know if you have asked him this or not. So there is allegation that Adam Curry was adopted from Swiss embassy in Yaoundé, La République du Cameroon. So we want to know from Alex if the Swiss government has anything to do about Mr. Adam Curry arrest. And if they know, why have they not written any document for his release? Thank you so much.
Okay, I guess you didn't listen to the last broadcast that I presented, and I made it very clear Abdul Karim was not arrested within the premises of the Swiss embassy. Of course, he was arrested within the vicinity, within the area where that embassy is found, but not within the premises of that embassy. Whatever the Swiss are doing, if they are doing anything to release him, or if they had a hand in his arrest, I will let Alex take care of that. Alex?
So I repeat, I am personally highly concerned by the arrest of Abdul Karim. He did participate in our meeting in last meeting in Switzerland. He's a man of peace, and of course we get to have personal bonds when we spend a few days discussing with such characters. So I'm concerned. I'm deeply sorry for himself and for his family, and I would like to assure you that the Swiss diplomacy at all levels is doing all it can to obtain his release, but that we also believe that it is a time now to let diplomats, state diplomats, do their job quietly. Rather than mount a huge media campaign. So I am closely following this matter. So are my counterparts of the Swiss government, and I can assure you that it's very high on our agenda.
All right. Thanks about that. We have quite a number of calls. But we have, I think, 3 minutes to go. I will take maybe 1 or 2 more calls and we will end it there, hoping that Ambazonian would have listened firsthand from you. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Secretary. This is Sama Thomas calling from Belgium.
Thank you, sir. What is your question or your contribution?
Yeah, let me first of all thank Mr. Alex for sparing part of his time to come and answer to some of our worries. But my question to Mr. Alex is this. Since when I was in the Southern Cameroons, the world, the international community was talking about peaceful diplomacy. Does this word, peaceful diplomacy, still have any meaning? Do we still have to use this word peaceful diplomacy, or they've dashed it to the wall? Thank you.
All right, thanks. Alex, please, over to you.
Thank you. I agree. I agree with you. Peaceful diplomacy doesn't mean much, right? Negotiations are a continuation of war on another terrain. Let me be very clear with that. Peace talks go together with military action. It may be sad, but it is a reality. I repeat, parties negotiate not because they believe in peace, they negotiate because they have to negotiate. And my job is to contribute to a successful negotiation, because you can achieve more by negotiation done by pure military force. But war and peace go together. It is a couple. It's almost a dance, and we should never forget that.
Okay, the last question. I'm sorry, the last caller. Unfortunately, I can't take many of them. Hello, sir.
Yes. Good evening, Secretary Chris. Yes, I'll start by
you calling from where? You calling from where?
I'm calling from Italy.
Okay.
From Italy. Yes, I'm Lord Montana. Okay, I wanted to ask Mr. Alexander, what if, as he rightly said, or Mr. John Bakuro also said, that there are some international communities interested in our matter, in the matter of the Ambazonian and the La Republic of Cameroon. Could he be precise about some of the people who are interested in the matters, and what if these people, if Alexei La Republic today refuses to sit on the table, what is their position, and what do they think they can do in order to make the international community intervene to know that it is La Republic who is not wanting peace to fight, who is not ready to look for a peace, a long-lasting, peaceful solution in this matter. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I hope you got the question.
Yes, I did. I did get the question. So there is certainly an interest and a concern of the international community around this conflict and around the prospect for a peace process. And I would say it's a rather good and a rather rare configuration when you have most of the states that sit on the Security Council that have an interest, of course, the US, the UK, France, and so on. When you have the United Nations, the African Union, that both support the process, it's quite an exceptional configuration. But make no mistake, the attention span of the international community is limited. It can shift. And this is why I have been pressing your comrades to get their act together and get ready for negotiation as soon as possible, because we have now a good coalition of states and international organizations that support this process and that encourage both parties to go to the negotiation table. So I would say it's as good as it gets, but again, it is not so much the international community that will ensure that there is a political agreement. It is at the end how good the negotiators, how convincing the negotiators are on both sides, and how united each camp is.
Okay.
And thank you for calling from Italy.
No. I should be thanking you for the inconvenience. I think I want to believe that Ambazonians have listened to you, and they now know what the Swiss talks or initiative is all about. And if need be, I will always knock at your door and get you here to take more questions and give more answers. Would that be okay, sir?
Secretary, I thank you for inviting me. As I said, it was an honor. It's very interesting also to me to be able to have a dialogue with all those who have doubts and questions. They are perfectly legitimate, and I stand absolutely at your disposal for further talks of this kind.
One question, Alex, before you go, one question that I forgot to ask is, who is paying for this?
It's a good question, sir. The government of Canada has been supporting HD in this, and of course the government of Switzerland is also doing its share. But we have there two governments that have been extremely generously supporting the process so far, and in so far as there is progress, I'm convinced that they will keep on supporting us.
Okay, and do they have these sponsors? Do they have a time frame within which they may no longer be able to foot the bills?
The answer is no, but I should think that if these two parties feel at some stage that the negotiation is a dead end, that the process is a dead end, there would be less enthusiasm. But I don't want to think about it. I'm an optimist by nature, and I'm convinced that we can get somewhere, we can improve the situation, and we can do something about the means and the opportunities and the political support we have at the moment.
You can assure Ambazonians that at any point in this process, if their leaders are not happy with what they see, they have the right to walk off the table, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a good negotiation is a negotiation where both parties are equally happy and unhappy. So in the end, if the Ambazonians feel that they do not get to an agreement that is acceptable to them, they will walk out, and there is nothing the mediation will do to get them in. We don't have simply the means to force either the Ambazonians or the government of Cameroon or anybody on this planet to enter into an agreement. If we were a big power, I would be a bit more concerned. But somehow the force of the Swiss-led process is the weakness of the mediator. We cannot impose solutions on the Ambazonians, and I think it is a good thing, and this is how a mediation should be.
All right. Once more, thank you very much for accepting the invitation to come on ABC. Fellow Ambazonians, you heard it from the horse's own mouth. You have any more doubts? You came here with doubts. I think you have the answers. If need be, anytime in the future, we'll bring back Alex to do more explanation for us as the process goes on. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for showing up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and God bless you all, and good night.
Who wanna know who owns the land? I said, who wanna know who owns the land? My papa's land. My papa's land. Africa, it's my papa's land. Now, hear me. We are no fools on the hill. My people are no fools on the hill. You must let my people go, so we can rule from Cape to Cairo. You must free my people's hands, so we can rule our purpose land. I wanna know who owns the land. Who wanna know who owns the land? Okay, now listen carefully. Chinese are ruling the Chinese land. Japan is ruled by Japanese. England is governed by Englishmen. America is governed by Americans. So, Africa must be ruled by Africans. I wanna know who owns the land. We must rule from Cape to Cairo. We must rule our purpose land. I said, we want to know who owns the land. I want to know who owns the land. Aslan, hey, Papa's land. Papa's land. Papa's land. Must be free. Angola wants to know who owns the land. Mozambique wants to know who owns the land. Namibia wants to know who owns the land. I say, Soweto wants to know who owns the land. Zimbabwe wants to know who owns the land. African freedom fighters want to know who owns the land. Papa's land. Now listen to the history. With the years since creation, with the years since creation, what has followed? Since the time of sun and sun, since the time of moon and stars, since the time of air and sea, since the time of men and things, we must rule from Cape to Cairo. Okay, now I want to talk to my Daneba. Now we are the crossroads. On the Femo, Dambela. Billy Sarah Daneba. On the Femo, Dambela. Opel Mumaya Baba.